I have to be very honest. When I came back from my studies abroad, I was a bit of a libertarian. So when I got into the situation where there had been a military insurrection in this country, and the disciplines that were being upheld, sometimes overboard, I was a little taken aback. But I sat down with some friends of mine, whom I won't mention, who were very influential in the country. And they convinced me that I'd been away for a long time and I had seen the way Ghana descended into a very bad state before Flight Lieutenant General John Rawlings and his comrades came into power. And so when I finally met him, I put it to him. When I met him again, I put it to him, and he explained to me, and I was actually very convinced, and I've remained convinced to this day that he really loved this country, and he was there for the con man, because we have to understand that the man on the street is the most important factor in the development of this country. If we ignore them, it's at our peril. And that is why he formed that party. And that's why that party has become the party actually of the people. And we have to relate to the people. Because when you talk about probity, accountability, and social justice, all right, it is for the quantum, the huge quantum of our people in this country, the majority of the people, the man on the street who is struggling, who is trying to do the best for himself. Because even if we talk about upward mobility, it comes from the masses. And it's the masses who will actually create a situation where the country goes. And one of the reasons why people respect Ghanaians is because of the political know-how of the average man on the street. The average man on the street is, you should never ever ignore him. And we've seen it in the recent elections where monies were being thrown left, right, and center. People thought that you could buy the man on the street. You can't buy him, because at the end of the day, he is the one who actually creates the situation for the country to go on. And we've seen ourselves that you can't take them for granted. People who thought they would remain in politics for a long time have been shunted aside. And now we have a situation in this country which is unique and which could harbor well for this country. So I believe that Jerry John Rawlings' ambition to make the man on the street a worthy weapon in the social advancement of our great Republic of Ghana has been realized to a certain, and we've got to continue. We really have to work very hard, and that relies on the leadership of the NDC and the legacy of Jerry John Rawlings.
Sure. Now, if you look at General Secretary, now Fritz Barfoot saying that if looking at it from where he sits, it looks as if the values that Flight Lieutenant Rawlings stood for are not dead. They are still active. That how do we sustain, how do you move it, and at the same time ensure that the integrity of the diplomatic Ghana is maintained?
Thank you very much. The way to go now is to see the values that he stood for and preached for, not as exclusively values for NDC. If we did that, then we stand a chance of losing out. Yeah. But I'm happy that he's been given a state barrier, and that after this, we all as a nation look at the principles he stood for, assess them whether they are relevant to our well-being as a country. And then we decide to commit ourselves, irrespective of any political party you belong to. Democracy is about accountability. Democracy is about probity. And so saying that you believe in probity and accountability does not make you exclusively an NDC person. It is actually a value that will help any democracy anywhere. He preached also about the principle that whatever concerns all must be decided by all. That is participatory governance. And so if we accept that participatory governance is useful to us as a country, You don't need to be an NDC person to believe in participatory government. Along that principle, he introduced the youth into politics. Before we grew up, before you talk about somebody being a member of parliament, DC or something, that person will be around beyond 50, 60 years and so on. It was Jerry Rawlings who felt that, well, if we are building the society for everybody, then everybody must have a say in the decisions that we are making today that will build, that will create a certain future. And so then the youth must participate. The women constitute more than 50% of our population. So if we say we are building a Ghana that will be useful to every Ghanaian, then the women must have a role. So believing in participatory democracy does not make you exclusively an NDC person. So if we view those principles along those lines, we will benefit as a country. When we talk about accountability, there are many people who tend to think that accountability is just about holding financial resources, utilizing them, and accounting. Jerry Rawlings was more focused on accountability for power, and that every power that a leader exercises is given to him or her by the people. So decisions that are taken or how that power is utilized, the leaders must account to those who gave them the power. And so when today you see people talking about rigging of elections and so on, it's a means of avoiding accountability to the people. Because if you use the people's power, and elections is a major accountability mechanism, and you want to dodge the logic of elections through rigging, it means that you are declaring yourself unaccountable to the people who gave you the power. And so these are some of the principles, and he spoke about social justice as well, that everybody must be his brother's keeper. Those who are able to be able to survive. And so government has a role in that type of mediation to make sure that people will have the opportunity to utilize their talents to their maximum. But when they succeed, they owe it a responsibility to contribute through taxes so that other people can also survive. Them in our national values. Unfortunately, people tend to look at exclusively the excesses of the revolution, and then they want to judge President Rawlings by the excesses of the revolution. That would be unfortunate for our country.
That's right. Mr. Fritz Wafu, let me come to you now. You were with Rawlings. If I can go back to Sincerely Yours, there was to achieve something. And how did he believe?
It's very instrumental in the I mean, when it started with this, my idea was that Ghanaians didn't know enough about themselves in terms of the Ghanaians who had gone abroad and the Ghanaians who were in Ghana. So I started off by going to talk to Ghanaians abroad about the circumstances in which led them to be abroad and how they felt about it. The situation was that you had a program which was to get Ghanaians to ask questions that I could ask the questions on behalf of Ghanaians. Then we concentrated on Ghana. And going through every nook and cranny of the country in order for Ghanaians to appreciate that we were one nation and one people. We are a fantastic country because